You're listening to Graphic Novel Explorers Club podcast, an audio book club.
Greetings, explorers. I'm one of your hosts, Johnny, joined by
Dennis.
And our guest host,
Jake.
Today we are reviewing Wonder Twins, Volume 1, Activate, by writer Mark Russell and artist Stephen Byrne. We hope you've read today's title because all three of us read the book, so beware, spoilers ahead. Spoilers can share their opinions and thoughts with us by leaving a comment on our Facebook page or over on Twitter and Instagram at GN Explorers Club. Graphic Novel Explorers Club is available wherever fine podcasts are found, including YouTube. So, Wonder Twins Volume 1 Activate was published by DC Comics in 2019, and it's written by Mark Russell, and the art and coloring are by Stephen Byrne. For those who don't know, Russell wrote The Flintstones, which Dennis and I and our friend Sino reviewed in episode 40, and we loved it. It was a great book, really funny, and had a lot of social commentary, which this book does too. It sneaks in a lot of social commentary.
Well, it was like a slow burn, though, at first. I kind of took some notes ahead of time, or as I was reading it, and there were a few frames here and there that kind of, I thought it was going to be more subtle, but then as the book kind of goes along, it really, really lays into it to a degree where it's not just kind of a background thing anymore. It's definitely in the forefront.
Yeah. And that's how the Flintstones was too. There were a lot of like puns. And then as the book moved forward, there was a lot of commentary about like how veterans are treated after they have to fight in wars, how capitalism just kind of lays waste to everything around it. Whereas in this book, there's a lot of commentary about the prison industry and how people are treated because of that.
Yeah, and what I admire about the writing in general is that it's not subtle at times, but at the same time, I don't feel like it's hitting me over the head. I don't know. It's a weird, not subtle, but also not overtly preachy. It walks a fine balance that I found very admirable, actually.
And that's with the Flintstones too. Mark Russell is becoming one of my favorite comic book writers, going off of these two books. And then the Snagglepuss book that was part of that Hanna-Barbera imprint that DC did a couple years ago is supposed to be incredibly good. We should read that someday in a future episode or season. But getting back to this book, so the Wonder Twins, for those who don't know, was part of the all-new Super Friends Hour back in the late 70s, early 80s. They replaced Wendy and what was the other guy?
Oh, they were just regular humans. Yeah. I forgot. They were like Scooby-Doo. Like
I think they were supposed to be in the inn for kids. Like, right. There's some regular people on there. But they didn't do anything. And I guess they had a hard time writing the characters into stories because they had no abilities, like super abilities. So the Wonder Twins, Zan and Jayna, were introduced, I guess, in the second season. They got rid of the other two characters and put these guys in. And then eventually they got introduced into the DC universe in the 90s. And then this is a little bit of trivia. I don't know if you guys were aware of this, but Zan and Jayna are named after Tarzan and Jane from
I did not know that.
Did not know that.
What did you think of them when you were growing up? Like initially, did you hate the characters?
It's interesting to see like that superpowers like that are so, almost absurd. It's the only way that I could see those happening is in the 70s, and and I just remember loving the Super Friends, just period. Mm-hmm. And so everything about that being piggybacked onto the rest of the Justice League, I was all about. So I don't think I was really had like looked at them with a real critical lens. I don't know. The nostalgia definitely made me like them.
One of the things I didn't like as a kid, but I now appreciate as an adult, was that, their mundane powers, Zan turns into any form of water, and then Jayna can become any animal, was how they could basically, it was anticlimactic, take out a supervillain, by freezing water on the ground, and then the Penguin or the Joker would run by and then, basically like slip and slide on the ice and fall. And as a kid, I'd be like, no, Superman should have come in here and punched them, or, Wonder Woman should have done so, should have been involved in this somehow. But now as an adult, that's so anticlimactic. I love it.
Yeah, it's weird looking back at it. I don't remember having any bad feelings about them. I wasn't a fan necessarily, but I just felt they were just kind of background characters. I was waiting for Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman to do their thing. So yeah, I don't actually have a hate for them like I do like Scrappy Doo. Like when I think about
there's no hate like that.
When I think about 80s Scooby-Doo, like I really hated Scrappy Doo. Like I was so annoyed by him. I felt he was useless. I don't have those same feelings. And you think you would. Like they're like a totally made up 80s, 70s add-on to the Super Friends. But for whatever reason, I accepted them. For whatever headcanon in my head, because of the way they looked, I thought they were Romulans from Star Trek in some way.
That makes sense.
I think it's the bangs.
Yeah.
But, and the pointy ears.
Yeah. So I kind of accepted them that way, but I didn't have the hate that I did for Scrappy Doo. So going into this, I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to hate them. They ruined the Super Friends. I mean, the Super Friends, to be honest, were the Super Friends. They weren't the Justice League. So I accepted that kind of level of goofiness a little bit. So yeah, I didn't go in thinking like I was going to hate these characters at all.
I had no real expectations on it, but
I didn't have any expectations at all. But then after, I think the first little blurb where he was describing how Jayna was doing the school announcements, the comment I think was, it'll either bring her out of her shell or is unnecessarily cruel. And I was like, okay, that just kind of set the whole tone for like the rest of the book. I was like, okay, I know what I'm getting myself into now.
And the interactions with Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman were all hilarious. It made me laugh out loud while I'm reading, and that's happens so rarely that I laugh.
Oh, there are some great jokes in this book. I think I wrote down that they're not necessarily like the most like clever, but they're hilarious. Like I mean, it was very funny. Like I really appreciated the humor in this book.
So the Wonder Twins Volume 1 Activate covers issues 1 through 6. And I guess this book did so well, they finished it off and did another 6, which came out in 2019. And so the story is the twins, the Wonder Twins, Zan and Jayna, are exiled on Earth. And I'm sure this is covered in the back half. We don't know why, but somehow Superman is friends with their dad. And he's like, well, I'll take him to Earth. Zan did something that caused them to be exiled. So they're exiled on Earth, and they're both attending high school in Metropolis. And they're also, the kind of cover is they're interning at the Hall of Justice. And they're both kind of outcasts trying to fit in. And then the 6 stories that make up this volume are, it gets weirder, in which Zan has a plan to make him the most popular kid at school with a cool nickname. His nickname ends up becoming Thunderlust, which is, it's a thing that their planet, their species goes through. It's like Pon farr with Vulcans. Whenever a thunderstorm happens, they have to mate. And I guess it's just like a big orgy on the planet. And one of the things I really liked in this was that the Hall of Justice was designed after the one from the cartoon in the 70s. I'm curious, Mark Russell must be close to our age, maybe a little younger, because he seems to know all of these cartoons and all these things that were popular, Hanna-Barbera and the Super Friends that were big in the 70s. He seems to just innately know and get.
What I do appreciate is that DC, at least in recent times, hasn't been shy about its Super Friend popularity. And you'll see the Hall of Justice pop up in some of the animations. And in fact, bits of the Hall of Justice can be found on the Snyder Cut of Justice League.
The one that's supposed to be coming out?
Yeah, and bits of the Hall of Justice are found there. So I do appreciate that DC isn't shy about recognizing how popular, the Hall of Justice and the Super Friends were. When you think about it now, like if you were to hear a new announcement, and not have any prior context, that they're going to come out with a superhero team-up show called the Super Friends, you would just roll your eyes. But back then, that was like, oh yeah, of course. And the Hall of Justice, which sounds super hokey, is like, yeah, that's where their headquarters would be. And
I'm sure after Batman 66, it was just like anything goes.
Right.
There's probably a decade or so, pretty much up until Tim Burton's Batman, where they're like, fuck it, just whatever. We'll throw it out there.
I was a huge fan of Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, and that it was like, you throw in friends because you want to know that the superheroes are friends, of course, naturally.
So the other stories are little boxes in which the Wonder Twins get the first assignment, taking down the League of Annoyance. And this was a funny story. Was there's a character named the Scrambler whose emblem is a fried egg, not scrambled eggs. I'm surprised it wasn't a scrambled egg. It was just a yolk who could swap the consciousness of people from one body to another. And it's really clever how he gets out of jail. He does swap minds with someone, but then he like
swaps.
Yeah. And it was really done so well.
And he's actually more powerful than, I mean, it's clear to the reader, his power is actually really powerful.
Oh, yeah.
Like he basically can command Freaky Friday on command.
Yeah. And so in an effort to rejoin the Legion of Doom, he must be in this minor leagues and start all over in the League of Annoyance. And then additionally, the Wonder Twins take on Baron Nightblood, aka Drunkula. And this was my favorite fucking character in the story was Drunkula. That's his nickname. He hates it. He goes by Baron Nightblood, who is a recovering alcoholic vampire because he drinks the blood of inebriated people. And
he was a tragic character.
He was like you actually did feel sympathetic for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he relapses. He's been 30 days sober.
But also how they set up his relapse is pretty funny.
It's
like
fantastic.
The fact that the jail is full because there was a hockey game and they throw him into the drunk tank.
Yeah.
Just to calamitous results.
And then the one that follows that is and these are all like like everything flows from one issue to the next so well. And the other one is Monkey Business. And this is where the League of Annoyance gets revenge. They want to get revenge against the Wonder Twins for causing Baron Nightblood to relapse. And then they also get Gleek, and you learn Gleek's origin story, which was very tragic, kind of on par with. I'm surprised the Flying Graysons didn't show up in this origin story. I kept expecting that to be part of it, and it didn't happen. And then a date which will live in infamy, and this is where Jayna is asked out by a supervillain named the Red Flag, which was great.
Because really on the nose name.
Yeah. Everything he does is such a red flag.
I'm so embarrassed that I just got the Red Flag reference. Like, oh my God. Like it's so blunt. It's like a grape ape.
Right.
Like, yeah. I just missed the 40-foot ape in front of me, and like the fact that he is a literal red flag.
Or like the Beatles
in many
being
ways,
one of
these are like bad guys from The Tick. I mean,
yeah,
that's how on the nose their names are.
It felt very much like an episode of the Venture Brothers, like that whole kind of universe, and I love that style of humor. Like that just cracks me up, especially like when they're parodying a character. Right, it's great. The one villain that when they announced her name, Amphetamine.
Amphetamine, yeah.
And how every time that she spoke, or not every time, but the most times when she started out, she said, I've been up all night and then I did so and so. That was very funny to me.
The other part of this story is, so Jayna goes on this date with the Red Flag, and then Zan finally gets to go on a date. And it's so, I love this. He gets friend zoned as Red Flag tells him on this date. The date winds up getting back together with her ex-boyfriend, and just like how positive Zan is, like he's in no way hurt. It's just all positive outcomes from him, or he's just like, well, yeah, she got back with her ex. That's great. They probably should have been together. And now, we probably would have broken up in a couple of weeks because we're 17-year-olds. But now we'll get to be friends forever because it was just like his positive logical conclusions were just fantastic.
And they weren't unrealistic. Like he wasn't like dumb about it. Like it actually makes sense. Like he wasn't like he wasn't outcome. Yeah.
He wasn't cuckolded. He was like, yeah, this is totally fine. They should be together.
it was like they took the perspective of an outsider, like them being, from a different planet, and we're trying to like learn about how Earth functions. And so they're thrown into these social situations. I very much like the fact that they had this outside perspective to kind of, that in itself, the outsider was able to kind of show the absurdity of things. And one of those was like the being ultra realistic about being friend zoned. And he was just so upfront and positive about it, because honestly, that's probably what would have happened. That outsider opinion or like perspective on it, he's like, yeah, that's what would have happened. Like, I'm, it doesn't hurt my ego. It doesn't anything like that. It's just what was inevitable. It's like those old Star Trek episodes where, like the aliens that had half black and half white, and the other ones were half white and half black, where they take something like that and, to point out like the absurdity of racism. And they have these aliens looking at it saying like, this is dumb, and doing it in that perspective was really funny.
Which they do a lot throughout this. They realize like the folly and the ridiculousness of like our societal rules
exactly.
Throughout this. It's not just dating. Many other, like imprisonment, when people are having issues or problems. Well, why don't you do this? It'd be better for everybody. Even the final story, which we'll get to here just a little bit, is you can see how that's like, oh, well, they're actually kind of doing the right thing. I mean, it's fucked up, but it's the main villain from The Watchmen, like how his final thing is terrible, but you're like, okay, but
I see where he was going.
Good could come out of this.
Well, yeah, I mean, what I loved early on, and this is a thread that they go throughout, is it's a dual meta talk on imprisonment. It's not only just about the prison system in real life, but also just realistically how superheroes operate, where they imprison a supervillain, but then they let him out so that they can catch him again.
Yeah.
And then which Beast Boy's like, yeah, that's how we operate. Which, by the way, the Beast Boys scene is one of my favorite, because I'm a big fan of those Hostess Pie ads.
Yes.
And when it turned out that he was filming a Hostess Pie ad, essentially, I was like, oh, this is amazing, because I love. Which
were always shoehorned into comics back then.
Yeah. And then they were their own thing. It looked like they were their own like little panel, and there was both DC and Marvel, which I thought was amazing. One of the few opportunities where both comic book houses basically did advertisements that were like little mini comics, and they were my favorite. Like, oh, you're just gonna give a Hostess Pie to someone, and suddenly they're okay with being caught. But it made sense. What would you do for a Klondike bar kind of mentality? Yeah. So, that was one of my favorite things. But yeah, I'd like the meta commentary of both the prison system and the fact that superheroes do allow the supervillains to escape so that they can catch them again. Because that's the endless folly of those capes and comics.
Well, just to add on to that real quick, there was a line that I think Jayna says where she's commenting on, someone says like, well, 90% of the people that we release don't come back. And she's like, well, does that mean that they needed to be incarcerated in the first place?
The other thing that I liked in that, it's hot mess fruity pies instead of Hostess.
That's
right. Is when Jayna, Superman's like, yeah, this is what you guys will do. You'll start off making these commercials, and Jayna's like, they have the same dialogue, the same exact dialogue, but Jayna's like, shit, is this what I'm gonna have to do for the rest of my career? And Zan's like, oh shit, is this what I get to do for the rest of my career? I love that. I love that part. But in A Date Which Will Live in Infamy, we're also introduced to Polymath, who's this really, she's a peer of the Wonder Twins at their school. We're introduced to her and her dad, Philomath, Polymath and Philomath, which is a stupid pun. And her dad, we find out, is forced to work for Lex Luthor, and Lex Luthor was was responsible for his wife, the mom of Polymath, to be killed because he was working on a project that could have saved humanity, and then Lex Luthor fucked it up. But anyways, so the second to last story is Magic and Games, where a villain in the League of Annoyance goes full Karen. And was that amphetamine?
No,
Was it a different one?
It was the phone one, right?
Yeah. So she goes full Karen on Philomath and then winds up getting him sucked up into the Phantom Zone because she has a piece of Krypton technology. Kryptonian cell phone
that she bought at an estate sale.
Yeah. And but she does the thing that a bunch of white women did over the past couple of years where they call on black people for no fucking reason. Him and Polymath are both black. And then there's a bunch of black kids standing around him filming this when this is happening. And he's not doing anything, but she goes full Karen on Philomath and calls the police, but she sucks him up into the Phantom Zone by accident.
Well, she doesn't even know that they go to the Phantom Zone. She's like, I don't know where they go. They just go somewhere else.
But I love how Lex Luthor's version of Fox TV, which is hosted by a whole bunch of bald, shaved-headed Lex Luthor copycat.
It took me a second to pick up on that when the panel on the first Lex show, how it was Angry Judge, right? And she was bald, and I just thought that I was like, okay, that's an interesting choice for the character who was debating Straw Man,
right?
And then Punditron.
And I like how the judge hasn't been a judge for like 8 years or something like that.
Oh no, it was like 30 years.
Right. And so, ultimately she's defended by the network and, she's the victim, not the people she's imprisoned in the Phantom Zone, but she's the victim because they scared her. And that's how the phone works, is that if she gets scared, they get sucked up by the Kryptonian technology into the Phantom Zone. And because she was the one who was scared, she should be the victim. So it always switches things, which is a great social commentary. I felt, once again, it felt like I should be thinking, this is really ham-fisted. This is like not so subtle version of Fox News. This is not so subtle of a thing happening. Yet, despite how ham-fisted it should be, I felt it was a great commentary and perfectly handled by the comic itself.
Yeah, it definitely had a level of dexterity to it that I honestly I didn't really see it coming. Like I saw like at first there were kind of like background things, and actually that's when I started writing in my notes. I was like, oh, okay, like there's going to be some social commentary in it, and then it kind of slowly ramped up to that moment, and then I was like, oh, okay, this is what its voice is, and it definitely has a message behind it.
Oh, it's just fascinating to me, like you were saying, the message behind it. It's so subtle, but yet so on the nose. It's fascinating to me. The whole thing with the dad, the math dad, he was brilliant. He got out of college, and they liked him until they met him and realized he was black, and then they were like, oh, you're not right for the position. Yet Lex Luthor is probably the least racist because he was like, no, I just want results. I want you to basically create a death machine or whatever. So just make it so in some weird twisted way, Lex Luthor is the most open to him because he's like, I don't care about your skin color. I care about you helping me become the most powerful man in the universe.
Yeah.
Maniac is the least racist.
Yeah, he's the most altruistic because his thing is like, just help me take down Superman. That's all I care. Because you can tell in the one drawing, he's holding up some green vial with like smoke coming out of it. Right. So you could tell it's like kryptonite based, and Lex Luthor's got this like look of joy on his face, like, oh, okay. So keep it moving. Polymath in Magic and Games, Polymath winds up to avenge her dad, teams up with the Scrambler, who's got this plan to swap everybody on Earth, because it's basically like a commentary on like the 1%ers of these like billionaires.
We definitely at that point were like into what this book was speaking about. But the line where I think the president says something like, it's every leader's worst nightmare to be like a normal person.
Right.
And like how that was just, that right there was what he was the most scared of.
And then the final story in this volume is The Great Scramble, in which the Wonder Twins race to stop Polymath and the Scrambler's plan, only to realize as they're like regretfully, when they wind up, spoiler, they wind up accidentally helping the Super Friends from stopping this, or the Justice League from stopping this plan, is that the plan might be the only thing that saves the human race from itself. it was just like a wonderful twist when they finally get there to help her. It's too late. Zan had took his abilities up another notch and turned himself into like a molecule of water, and then went out and listened to everybody's
well, and that's also
conversations.
that in itself was to me hilarious because I mean, when you hear someone describe that they can turn into water, like it seems like that superpower has a very low kind of ceiling in terms of effectiveness. And then to see it be used in such an effective way was just very funny.
Well, it's because I think this is Russell, like Mark Russell's great attention to the original show was he was always turned into stupid shit like a bucket of water. And like
steam. Yeah.
And it's like,
well, and then to use the steam as such an effective tool is,
yeah. Like you don't realize like, oh yeah, that's actually quite a powerful tool or, ability that he has, almost more powerful than his sisters who can turn into animals. It'd be funny to see if she like turned into anthrax or something like that. But one of my favorite lines in this comic book, Zan is kind of like, this is in one of the earlier stories, kind of humiliated, and Batman, Superman are both kind of telling their tales of like embarrassment in high school, and to like summarize it, Superman says, "High school is a buffet line of humiliation, Zan. Everybody gets a plate." I thought that was it was such a good line. Another thing I really liked in this is when Polymath is walking along and she's like, the Wonder Twins invite her to go hang out with them, and she's like, "No, I just want to walk by myself. I like to spend at least an hour a day just walking. It allows my mind to be free and think." But she's walking along, and she like comes up with a cure for testicular cancer, and then these two fucking meatheads at a construction site are harassing her. They make her lose her train of thought. I bet you it comes in later in the second volume where those two have testicular cancer and they die from it or something. Like, so you can just see the foreshadowing. Something is foreshadowed with those two knuckleheads.
Yeah, it's funny how the Scramblers' plan was like, at the end, you're like, yeah, this actually would fix things. I mean, they were rushing to demilitarize and reduce nukes because they weren't sure who was going to be in charge. Yep. So it was actually causing peace to happen.
Poverty reform, prison reform, like all this stuff.
If they were stuck as poor people, they would want to have, some coverage.
Equality.
So
it was all of the legislation at the end to end global poverty, climate change, and all of those, like they throw them up in the air because the plot has been foiled, and so we can remain the status quo.
The Super Friends, in trying to save the day, actually ruin the day at the last minute. The 11th hour, they ruin everything. So, final thoughts on the book. Would you guys recommend it?
Definitely. Like I said, for whatever reason, this seemed way too on the nose, but also not. Like it was threaded beautifully in terms of making it like a parody, like The Tick, while having a social message, but actually being very subtle with the subject and smart, and really making you feel empathy for like the villain, feel for the characters, and mixed with humor, and not mindless humor. As much as I love things like Lobo or Deadpool, this was, a parody in the sense of the superhero world, but not in just like laugh it out loud. It was like, oh, that makes you think about actual social issues, which, in many ways I've read, and I'm currently reading some current DC storylines, and it's just really the same, like big bad guy, all the heroes come together, look dark and brooding. And I buy it because I like the art and all that stuff. But this actually had a lot more social commentary than most of the Batman comics I read. Most of them are just like, I'm just a crying boy who misses his mommy and daddy. And this actually was like really looking at, with using LexCorp and his usage of the prison system, which naturally LexCorp would be part of the prison complex. Yeah, it was brilliant. Like using him as the forced labor, all of that was just, it wasn't subtle, but it was just brilliantly like told.
It's just snuck in perfectly.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely recommend.
What about you, Jake?
Oh, definitely. And just to tag on to kind of what Dennis was saying, like it was weird, the tone of this book, like to be so blatant about what it was doing, and yet it still had some sort of, I don't know how to describe it, but like a subtlety to it. And I don't know if it was just, it was, I think for some of the jokes that I wrote down, like it was simple, but very clever. Yeah. And I really, really appreciated that, because even in the moments where it was like super heavy handed in terms of what it was talking about, like I was still on board with it, because it had just, it somehow hit that tone right. And I was very appreciative of it.
Here's the perfect way to sum this book up is so dumb but clever at the same time, as how Zan takes down bad guys. Is he'll look like an innocuous puddle of water, and then when the bad guy steps over it, he I forget what his little line is, that to turn back into his solid self.
Something refreshment, like total refreshment.
Yeah, that's right.
And then he'll turn back into his solid self and hammer the person in the nuts as they walk over him.
Right.
It's so dumb, but awesome. Like, and he takes out a couple different people that way. Yeah, this is a great book.
Another thing that I really enjoyed about this book was, again, not knowing what to expect going into it. I mean, just kind of knowing the Wonder Twins' powers and just kind of how ridiculous the kind of the setup is for it. I wasn't sure how they were going to be able to kind of make that a bigger story. And they didn't shy away from how ridiculous their powers were, but then also
their catchphrase. Yeah, they even make fun of their own catchphrase.
Yeah, but also, and this is something that I don't know if there was like kind of a major transition, because when I was really, really into comics back in the day, like the comic books that you knew had a sense of humor, like that was just the whole run of it. Like, you have comics like Gru, or Lobo, or Ralph Snart, or something like that, where you looked at the cover and you go, okay, this isn't a serious book. But now with like it was fun to kind of see these serious characters from the Justice League brought in and used to a humorous end. Like, there's not really a lot of, and this just might be my own experience, but there's not a lot of like Superman or Batman stories that like made me laugh. But, to go back to your favorite line with the buffet, and Superman saying that we all get a plate, you don't see those, a humorous side from Batman and Superman very often. And pulling them into that was, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, it just blows my mind once again that you could have the League of Annoyance have a supervillain that her whole shtick is talking on the phone that has Kryptonian technology. And like, I should hate it, but it's brilliant how her arc came about and how she used her supervillain power, and how I was able to both laugh and also shake my head at the commentary I was trying to make. And it's just like, I can't believe I found a book that made some pretty deep level social commentary, but also made me laugh at the same time. That usually doesn't happen.
No, and it walked a very, very, very fine line. And somehow it pulled it off to enormous success.
Where can people follow the podcast there, Dennis?
You can follow us on Insta and Twitter at GN Explorers Club.
Cool. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Podcast powers activate!
Form of a microphone.
Form of headphones. What was the quote from Twins? It was like,
over the lips, past the gums. Look at stomach, cause here it comes. Yeah. Yakety yak. Don't talk back.
That's like Johnny's favorite line. I'm pretty sure that's probably going to be on his tombstone.
Yakety yak. Don't talk back. Yeah. And then in parentheses, Australian accent or Austrian accent. Or over the lips, past the gums. Look at stomach, here it comes.